What if your vegetable garden didn't have to shut down every time the season changed? For most gardeners, spring means planting, summer means harvesting, and once autumn arrives, the garden slowly disappears. By winter, the containers are empty, and you're already thinking about what to plant next year. But perennial vegetables can completely change that cycle. Instead of starting from seeds every spring, these plants establish themselves once and continue producing or returning year after year. And when you combine several perennial vegetables with different temperature tolerances and harvest windows, you can create something even more valuable. A garden that keeps giving you something to harvest through spring, summer, fall, and, in mild climates, even winter. Today, we're looking at 7 unusual perennial vegetables that can help build that kind of 4-season harvest system. Some are cold-hardy leafy greens, some can be harvested repeatedly, and others slow down during the coldest months before returning with fresh growth in spring. Let's begin. At number 7, Salad Burnet. If your garden seems to disappear every time the seasons change, Salad Burnet is one perennial green worth knowing. Unlike lettuce, which often struggles with heat and can bolt quickly, Salad Burnet establishes itself once and can continue producing fresh leaves over a remarkably long growing season. Its small, tender leaves have a refreshing cucumber-like flavor, making it a surprisingly useful addition to a 4-season container garden. What makes Salad Burnet especially valuable is its tolerance for cool conditions. The plant can remain productive during much of the cool season, and in mild climates, fresh foliage may remain available well into winter. In colder areas, growth slows or the plant goes dormant, but the established root system can survive and return when spring arrives. That means you're not starting over every year just to get another crop of salad greens. For containers, a pot around 8 to 10 inches deep is enough for an established plant, making Salad Burnet an excellent choice when space is limited. It prefers a container with good drainage and a loose, nutrient-rich growing mix. For the best long-term performance, give the plant enough room to establish without crowding it with other aggressive growers. Salad Burnet is generally suited to USDA zones 4 through 9, with zones 4 to 8 being especially comfortable for long-term perennial growth. Established plants can tolerate temperatures around 30° F depending on the specific variety and local conditions. In very cold, Zone 3 or below, winter protection or moving a container into a sheltered garage or greenhouse can help protect the roots. In Zone 9 and hotter climates, partial afternoon shade can reduce heat stress and help maintain tender foliage. Harvesting is simple. Pick the youngest outer leaves regularly instead of cutting the entire plant. With repeated harvesting, the plant can keep producing new growth throughout the season. And in the kitchen, its subtle cucumber flavor is excellent in fresh garden salads or chilled cucumber soup. Salad Burnet may not produce enormous harvests, but that's not why it earns a place on this list. It's valuable because one established container can keep supplying fresh, distinctive leaves through multiple seasons, while coming back again when spring arrives. At number 6, Sea Beet, also known as wild spinach. If you're looking for a perennial leafy green that can replace spinach without forcing you to start from seed every year, Sea Beet is a fascinating choice. This wild relative of cultivated spinach produces thick, glossy leaves with a mild, earthy flavor. More importantly, once established, it can keep producing new foliage over a long season, while many traditional spinach plants have already finished. Sea Beet is particularly valuable because it handles cool conditions extremely well. In mild climates, the leaves can remain available through much of winter, while colder weather may slow production without necessarily killing an established plant. As spring returns, fresh new leaves emerge and the harvest cycle begins again. That makes Sea Beet less about one giant harvest and more about maintaining a dependable supply of greens over time. For containers, use a pot at least 10 to 12 inches deep, with enough room for the plant to develop a substantial root system. Because you're keeping it for years rather than one season, avoid extremely small containers that will quickly become restrictive. Sea Beet is naturally adapted to cool coastal conditions and is generally suitable for approximately USDA zones 4 through 9, with zones 5 to 8 being especially favorable for long-term growth. Established plants can tolerate temperatures around 10 DDF, although exact cold tolerance depends on the plant and local conditions. In colder Zone 4 areas, protect the container during severe freezes. In Zone 3 or below, moving it into a sheltered garage or greenhouse can help protect the roots. In Zone 9 and hotter climates, partial afternoon shade is useful during periods of intense heat. Harvest the outer leaves while they're young and tender, leaving the center of the plant intact so it can continue producing. You can repeatedly harvest small amounts instead of removing the entire plant. The flavor is mild enough for sautéed greens or spinach-style soups, making Sea Beet a practical perennial substitute for one of the most popular leafy vegetables. The real advantage is longevity. Instead of planting spinach again and again, one established Sea Beet can become a permanent source of fresh greens that returns season after season. At number 5, Welsh onions. Most gardeners think of onions as a crop you plant, wait for, harvest, and then replace. Welsh onions work differently. These perennial bunching onions can remain in the garden for years, producing fresh green leaves that you can harvest repeatedly without pulling up the entire plant. That makes them almost perfect for a 4-season container garden. During spring, established plants quickly produce fresh green shoots. Through summer, you can cut individual leaves whenever you need them. In fall, they can continue providing fresh greens as temperatures cool, and in mild climates, the foliage can remain available through much of winter. In colder regions, growth may slow significantly, but the plants can survive underground and return when spring arrives. For containers, choose a pot around 8 to 10 inches deep, with enough space for several plants to grow without becoming overcrowded. Because Welsh onions are perennial, a container that gives the roots room to remain established for multiple years is much more useful than a small seasonal pot. Welsh onions are highly cold tolerant and generally perform well across approximately USDA zones 4 through 9, with zones 4 to 8 being ideal for dependable perennial growth. Established plants can tolerate temperatures around 0 degrees, with some varieties surviving even colder conditions when well established. In Zone 3 or colder, protect container roots from severe winter freezes by moving the pot into a sheltered garage, greenhouse, or other protected space. In Zone 9 and hotter areas, partial afternoon shade can help prevent excessive summer stress. The harvesting method is what makes this plant so valuable. Instead of pulling the whole onion, simply cut the green leaves a few inches above the soil and allow the plant to regrow. You can repeat this process throughout the growing season. The flavor is sharper and more complex than ordinary scallions, making Welsh onions excellent in ramen or stir-fries. And that's why they deserve a place in a 4-season food garden. You plant them once, keep harvesting what you need, and let the plant keep growing. At number 4, watercress. Most people think of watercress as a delicate, leafy green that belongs in a stream or beside a spring. But under the right conditions, it can become one of the most productive cut-and-come-again crops in a perennial food garden. Once established, watercress produces tender, peppery leaves that can be harvested repeatedly instead of being pulled out after a single crop. Its biggest advantage is its ability to keep growing when moisture is consistently available. In cool spring weather, fresh shoots quickly emerge and can be harvested regularly. During summer, the plant can continue producing as long as it doesn't dry out. In fall, cooler temperatures can help maintain tender foliage, while in mild winter climates, established plants may continue providing small harvests. In colder regions, growth can slow or stop temporarily before returning when conditions improve. For containers, choose a 10 to 12-inch deep pot with excellent drainage and enough room for the plant to spread. Since watercress is naturally adapted to wet environments, the growing medium should remain consistently moist without becoming stagnant or foul-smelling. Watercress performs best in approximately USDA zones 5 through 9, with zones 5 to 8 generally offering the most comfortable conditions. Established plants can tolerate temperatures around 20 degrees, although prolonged hard freezes can damage exposed foliage. In Zone 4 or colder, protect the container during severe winter weather by moving it into a sheltered greenhouse or garage. In Zone 9 and hotter climates, partial shade during the hottest afternoon hours can help prevent stress. Harvest by cutting the tender stems and leaves while leaving enough healthy growth behind for the plant to regenerate. Frequent light harvesting is better than removing everything at once. And that peppery flavor is especially good in watercress soup or fresh sandwiches, where its sharp taste can replace ordinary salad greens. The real value of watercress isn't one enormous harvest. It's the ability to keep cut in small amounts, allowing the plant to grow back again and again. At number 3, French Sorrel. If spinach and lettuce disappear from your garden every time the weather becomes difficult, French Sorrel offers a very different strategy. This perennial leafy green produces long, tender leaves with a naturally bright, lemony flavor, and once established, it can continue supplying fresh foliage year after year. French sorrel is especially valuable because it doesn't need to be harvested all at once. In spring, new leaves emerge early and can provide some of the first fresh greens of the season. During summer, you can continue picking young leaves, especially if the plant receives protection from the harshest afternoon heat. In fall, cooler temperatures can help extend the harvest, and in mild climates, some foliage may remain available into winter. In the colder regions, the plant can go dormant and return from its established roots when spring arrives. For containers, use a pot at least 10 to 12 inches deep, with enough space for the plant to establish permanently. Because this is a perennial, avoid treating it like a one-season lettuce crop. A stable container allows the root system to remain productive for years. French sorrel is generally suited to approximately USDA zones 4 through 9, with zones 4 to 8 being especially favorable for long-term growth. Established plants can tolerate temperatures around 20 degrees, although severe winter exposure is more difficult for plants growing above ground in containers. In Zone 3 or colder, move the container into a sheltered garage or greenhouse when severe freezes arrive. In Zone 9 and hotter climates, partial afternoon shade can help protect the leaves from excessive heat and reduce the tendency to become tough. Harvest the youngest leaves regularly, but avoid removing the entire crown. The more established the plant becomes, the more dependable your supply of fresh leaves can be. Its lemony flavor makes it particularly memorable in classic French sorrel soup or a creamy sorrel sauce served with fish. French sorrel may look like an ordinary leafy green, but its real advantage is permanence. Instead of planting spinach every few weeks, you can keep one established plant producing fresh, flavorful leaves season after season. At number 2, Daubenton's Perennial Kale. If you love kale but hate starting a new crop every year, this is the kind of plant that can completely change your container garden. Daubenton's kale is a true perennial kale, meaning that instead of growing, flowering, producing seeds, and dying, after one season, an established plant can continue producing fresh leaves year after year. And that's what makes it so valuable for a 4-season harvest system. In spring, new shoots and tender leaves begin appearing as the plant wakes up from winter. Through summer, you can repeatedly harvest the outer leaves while leaving the growing points intact. In fall, the plant can continue producing as the temperatures become cooler. In mild climates, established plants may even provide usable foliage through winter, while colder areas may see growth slow dramatically before the plant resumes in spring. For containers, give it a 15 to 20 gallon container, preferably one large enough to support the plant for several years. Daubenton's kale can become a substantial perennial, so a tiny seasonal pot will quickly become restrictive. It is generally suited to approximately USDA zones 7 through 10, with zones 7 to 9 being ideal for long-term growth. Established plants can tolerate temperatures around 10 DJF, although protection is useful during prolonged freezes. In Zone 6 or colder, move the container into a sheltered garage or greenhouse during severe winter weather. In Zone 9 and hotter climates, partial afternoon shade can help reduce heat stress and protect the leaves during the hottest part of summer. The harvest is beautifully simple. Pick the mature outer leaves while leaving the central growing points untouched. The plant keeps producing new foliage, allowing you to harvest small amounts repeatedly rather than clearing the entire container. And those tender leaves are excellent in kale chips or hearty vegetable soups. Daubenton's kale isn't about one giant harvest. It's about creating a permanent source of greens that keeps coming back season after season. At number 1, Purple Tree Collards. This may be one of the most impressive perennial vegetables you can grow in a container. Unlike ordinary collards that are usually grown as seasonal crops, purple tree collards can develop into a large, woody-stemmed plant that continues producing new leaves over multiple years. And that changes the way you think about harvesting. Instead of planting the new crop every spring, you maintain one established plant and harvest from it repeatedly. Spring brings fresh new growth, summer provides a steady supply of leaves when the plant is actively growing, and fall can actually become one of the best times to harvest as cooler temperatures arrive. In mild climates, the plant can continue producing through winter, while colder areas may require protection or temporary dormancy. Because purple tree collards can become large, use at least a 20-gallon container, and ideally choose an even larger pot if you want to maintain the plant for many years. The extra root space also gives the perennial a better foundation for recovering after repeated harvests. The plant is generally best suited to approximately USDA zones 7 through 10, with zones 7 to 9 being especially favorable for year-round growth. Established plants can tolerate temperatures around 20°F, but prolonged hard freezes can cause serious damage. In Zone 6 or colder, move the container into a protected garage or greenhouse when severe winter weather arrives. In Zone 10 and hotter climates, partial afternoon shade can help protect the foliage from intense summer heat. Harvesting is what makes this plant so powerful. Instead of removing the entire plant, pick individual leaves or young shoots from different parts of the canopy, allowing the remaining branches to continue producing. The leaves have that familiar collard green character and are excellent in Southern-style braised greens or hearty vegetable stews. Purple tree collards aren't simply another leafy green. They represent the real advantage of perennial food gardening. Plant once, maintain the plant, and keep harvesting from the same living food source for years. And when combined with the other 6 plants on this list, it becomes part of a much bigger goal: a container garden designed to keep producing food through all 4 seasons. Most vegetable gardens are designed around one idea: plant in spring, harvest in summer, clean everything up in fall, and start all over again next year. But perennial vegetables give you another option. Instead of constantly restarting your food garden, you can build a living system that becomes more established with time. Salad Burnet, Sea Beet, Welsh Onions, Watercress, French Sorrel, Daubenton's Kale, and purple tree collards each have different strengths and different harvest windows. Together, they can help turn a collection of containers into something much more valuable: a garden designed for continuity. And that's the real advantage of perennial vegetables. You don't need every container producing every day. You simply need enough plants entering their productive season at different times of the year so that your harvest doesn't completely disappear when one season ends. Start with 1 or 2 plants. Learn how they behave in your climate. Then gradually build your collection until every season has something worth walking outside to harvest. Because food security isn't necessarily about growing the biggest garden. It's about creating a garden that doesn't have to start from zero every spring. If you could grow only one of these 7 perennial vegetables, which one would you choose? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more practical strategies for growing a reliable food supply in containers, subscribe and stay with us for the next video.